As most of us already knew, it was never about Black Lives Matter. Listen to what Dave Chappelle had to say about Black Lives Matter, and you will be confused based on the actions of those who claim to be out there protesting for Black Lives Matter. Was Dave Chappelle in his stand-up special talking about taxing the rich? No. Was he talking about tearing down statues of Ulysses S. Grant and Francis Scott Key, Thomas Jefferson and George Washington? No. He was talking about police accountability. And when you hear someone as high profile as him, you don't have to agree with him, but at least you can now tell that these fringe extremists do not care about Black Lives Matter. They're using it as a cover because they are far left revolutionaries. They really do view themselves as such. The latest breaking news: protesters tear down statues of Union General Ulysses S. Grant, national anthem lyricist Francis Scott Key. I believe Grant was also the 18th president of the United States, who used, I believe, I could be wrong about this, I'm not a historian. My understanding was that he used Union soldiers, federal soldiers, to enforce civil rights law in the South. He defeated the Confederacy. Now they say, but he was a slave owner. Actually, he inherited a slave, my understanding, and freed him. Again, not a historian, so fact check me on those details. But regardless, they have torn down the statue of the man who actually defeated the Confederates. You want to talk about Thomas Jefferson, you want to talk about George Washington, and give me that they were slave owners stuff. Hey man, slavery was an atrocity, a horrifying thing, and it still exists today. There's no defense of what they did, but I can respect the good things that have come out of our founding fathers, their ideas, notably a country in which we get Ulysses S. Grant, who leads Union forces to end slavery. I understand the Civil War was much more complicated than just to say slavery, but for the most part, it really was about slavery. I know a lot of people don't like to argue that. There was a big issue based on the states' rights versus the federal government, the Union, and it is much more complicated than just say two sides were like, slavery or not. But for the most part, that was a principal component. And I don't want to get into historical debate. I just want to put it this way. When they go out and actually destroy the guy, whatever your position is, they go out and destroy the guy who actually defeated the Confederacy. Now you know they're lying. They want a culture revolution. That's why they're tearing down statues of everybody and why they're banning art and video games and movies. It is not about Black Lives Matter. It is about culture revolution and erasing our history. Let's read the story. The Hill says, protesters in San Francisco, violent extremists and rioters in San Francisco on Friday toppled the statue of former President Ulysses S. Grant, who led the Union Army during the Civil War in Golden Gate Park. San Francisco police said that around 400 people gathered around 8 p.m. to take the statue down, though no arrests were made, according to NBC Bay Area. Also torn down in the park on Friday were the statues of St. Junipero Serra and Francis Scott Key, who wrote the lyrics of the Star Spangled Banner. Now, I'm not super familiar with St. Junipero. I do know there's a funny meme going around proving the Democrats are on the wrong side of history because the Democrats are actually at a ceremony where they're praising St. Junipero, which is kind of hilarious. Now, Francis Scott Key, my understanding was that he actually freed several slaves as well. So I can't tell you what these people actually care about other than destroying America. And it's funny, right? I brought this up before. I remember growing up hearing the jokes about conservatives, talk radio going, they hate America, liberals hate America, blah, blah, blah. These people literally do. They literally hate America. They say Friday was Juneteenth, a national celebration commemorating the last slaves being freed in Texas on June 19th, 1865, nearly 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. While Grant is widely celebrated as being one of the leading forces that helped the Union win the Civil War, bringing the end of slavery in the U.S., some historians have pointed to his complicated relationship with slavery. They say Grant did in fact own a man named William Jones for about a year on the eve of the Civil War. Sean Kane, interpretations and program specialist at the American Civil War Museum, said in an article, in 1859, Grant either bought or was given the 35-year-old Jones, who was in Grant's service until he freed him before the start of the war. Kane also noted that Grant married into a slaveholding family that owned dozens of slaves. After Confederate forces fired on Fort Sumter, Grant wrote his father, an abolitionist, "My inclination is to whip the rebellion into submission, preserving all constitutional rights. If it cannot be whipped any other way than through a war against slavery, let it come to that legitimately. If it is necessary that slavery should fall, that the republic may continue its existence, let slavery go. Many on Twitter pushed back against the toppling of Grant's statue in San Francisco for the obvious reasons, right? Not only was he a former U.S. president, he defeated the Confederates. So all these people who are saying the Confederates were traitors and things like that, sure, fine, whatever. Explain Grant. I'll wait. Andy Serwer said, Grant did briefly own one slave he freed years before the war, but as a general, he smashed the Confederacy. And as president, he crushed the Klan. He presided over the ratification of the 15th Amendment. People going after Grant probably just want to break things. No, Adam, I'm sorry. You're right about some things, but these people hate this country. They want to destroy all of it. They're violent revolutionaries. I'm not saying they're the most dangerous people on the planet, but they're being allowed to get away with all of this. We have another tweet here from Matt Whitlock who said he was a, quote, slave owner and that he was gifted a slave, hated the idea, and freed him within a year. Then won the Civil War, prosecuted the Klan, and appointed African Americans to prominent roles in government. This might have gotten out of hand. Oh, you think? Maybe when they got rid of Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. Matthew Iglesias says, feels like this is the slippery slope overreach. Matthew Iglesias, for those that don't know, is one of the, I believe, a founder of Vox.com, VOX, the leftist progressive site that has radicalized people with these ideas, that has on many occasions defended Antifa and played right into the hands of the progressives. So you know what? I know conservatives say this about me, but it is true that these liberal types, these progressive types, coddled the revolutionaries until the point where they actually went nuts. Let me tell you a story. During Occupy Wall Street, there were a lot of people down there who really liked me. Yeah, believe it or not, huh? Occupiers, a lot of them, a small handful really hated me, physically attacked me on more than one occasion. But there were some Antifa types, some far lefties who did like me and, would look out for me to a certain degree. I remember there were some big events where I had been attacked before by these far leftists, and I would have some of the Occupy people ask me if I wanted the activists to protect me and give me security because they wanted me covering their protests. I was under the false impression that these people, while many of them probably disagreed with me, respected the fact that I was covering the protests at all, and that even if some of them did bad things, they wanted the coverage. Well, I was kind of wrong. Some of these people really did feel that way. But I had a conversation with one of these far left Antifa types who I've known for a really long time, and they basically said to me, what you don't understand is that we were always using you, that what you provided for us was a net positive. And today, what you provide for us is a net negative. They told me they've always believed in violence. They've never cared for civil rights or civil liberties, that they want to control and destroy. They want to destroy the system, take control of it because they want to be in charge. I am not exaggerating. I've talked to some of these people. They've explained in many different ways, many different times. They just want the power because they think they will be better rulers. They are power hungry lunatics. And they told me that always since Occupy did they believe in using violence and suppressing rights and harming people, seriously harming the innocent. I was having a conversation about innocent people who got wrapped up in the violence, and they said, make an omelet, break a few eggs, huh? And that's shocking to me. They don't care about individual liberties or rights. And that's the point I'm making here. Many progressives, and to a certain degree myself included, coddled these people. Now, I don't think it's fair necessarily to wrap myself up in that because I filmed them vandalizing cop cars during Occupy. It's one of the reasons they physically attacked me. But a lot of these progressives entertained this, and they call it respecting a diversity of tactics. And they were warned. We warned these bleeding heart liberal types, these, they marched the streets. They didn't like the violence, but they would say, well, we have to respect a diversity of tactics. No, that's the lie they use to trick you into supporting their insanity. They would say to them, why don't punch left. Don't criticize us. We're on your side. We just want to do things differently. Respect the diversity of tactics. And I tried to explain to these activists, you realize a diversity of tactics means no strategy at all. It means no tactics at all. If one person is pro-violence and you're pro-peace, then your whole group is pro-violence, period. By letting these lunatics run rampant, the whole thing becomes tainted. So I have to wonder, who are these people really working for? Trump? I mean, look, they're tearing down Grant. Do you think any sane American is going to be like, that's about ending racism? They're going to be like, but Grant was the Union general. He's the guy who ended it. Yeah, they're not going to believe it. So who is this really benefiting? It's not benefiting the left. It's not to destroy Washington and Jefferson is definitely not benefiting the left. It's benefiting Trump, and it's freaking out people and making them want to vote for Trump. So if I was a conspiracy theorist, which I'm not, I'd have to imagine that Trump was paying these people. But no, the reality is these people are just really, really dumb. Now, there's the question of why won't Trump stop them? There are some conspiracies floating around among the left, actually, that they think Trump is letting them do it because they know this will help Trump get elected. That Trump could actually intervene. Now, Trump tweeted something to the effect of he made Minnesota send out the National Guard. Some people on the right say Trump can't actually do anything because he's in charge of the federal government, not state governments. And that's true. There are things Trump could probably do, Insurrection Act maybe. But the argument from the left is to be careful because Trump will purposefully stand back and say, oh, no, the governors, the Democrat governors. That way people vote out the governors, too. And then when it comes to November, Trump will make a bunch of bold promises. He'll promise up criminal justice reform. He'll promise up law and order. And he'll probably deliver it. And could he do it now? Yeah. Some people ask, why isn't that Trump and his administration, the Republicans, won't deal with social media censorship? Well, they could, but they want to guarantee re-election. That's a lot. I don't want to pretend like that's, what most people believe, but certainly the ideas are floating around there that Republicans could do more, and they're not, because they want to wait until the 11th hour and then say, you need us. Vote for us because you need us so we can do these things. I wonder what will happen. Because here's the challenge. Will Joe Biden stop this? No. No, he won't. Where is Joe Biden right now? Why hasn't Joe Biden stood up for George Washington? You want to be the president of this country, and you won't defend the first. Disgusting. You want to be the president of this country. You won't defend the third or the 18th. Then you don't deserve to be president as far as I'm concerned. This is a country. We have bad things in our history, but we respect the system that was built and we seek to improve it. And you give respect to those who helped build this because you are standing on the shoulders of giants. Joe Biden does not deserve to be president if he won't speak up against this. Now, to Trump's credit, he has talked a little bit about it. He talked about a Confederate statue recently. I'd like to hear him bring up, maybe he has, Jefferson and Washington. But to his credit, he called this out back in 2017 and said, what's next? Jefferson, Washington? He was right. And boy, was the whataboutism from the left, the accusations of whataboutism thick. They said, look, no one wants to tear down Jefferson. We're talking about slave owners. We're talking about the Confederates. Well, how about Ulysses S. Grant, man? How about this? Matthew Iglesias saying, this is the slippery slope. Congratulations, good sir. Perhaps you contributed to this because you could have stood up a long time ago. But hey, I'll tell you what, if you're coming around right now, if we're seeing leftists say, hey, this is too much, don't tear this down, my respect, okay? Pencils have erasers. You could have stopped it sooner. You could have you helped egg them on, but you know what? If you're going to come out and say it's bad, I'll agree with you and say thank you for calling it out. Because when you get Vox coming out now, perhaps we will see some unity. Perhaps the progressive websites, conservatives and moderates will all be like, whoa, 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 hey, no, too much. You crossed the line. Unfortunately, I don't think it matters. They already crossed that line. That's why I think Trump's going to win. And I got to tell you, it's really funny. I could absolutely be wrong. I'll tell you why I'm probably wrong. In 2016, I thought Trump was going to lose. But you know what? Everyone did. And then Trump won. I was wrong about that. Then in 2018, because of that, I was convinced the Republicans were going to sweep and maintain control of the House, maybe even expand their majority. Boy, was I wrong about that. And now I'm sitting here saying I think Trump's going to win, even though the polls have Trump down double digits. And I'm saying I think he's going to win. Yeah, I'm probably wrong about that too. Let's be real, man. I have not called these elections. I haven't. I've called the violence. I've called the escalation. But my predictions about why people would vote were totally off. So I can just come back and say, I don't know, because I'll tell you what, if I think now because of my broken, my failed predictions in the past two elections, because they were wrong, I now think Trump is going to lose, he will probably win. So you know what? I have no idea. But I can tell you this. There are a lot of people that do believe this is Trump's fault. Absolutely. And they think we need a return to normalcy. I can't remember the comedian's name, but he was saying something about people want nostalgia. And Joe Biden is a memory of the Obama era where people were having a good time. Whether it was good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's how people felt. So people are going to vote for him for that reason. Under Donald Trump, it's been chaos, calamity, constant bad news, bad press. We have the coronavirus. We got the economic crisis. And so people might not really care whether or not it's Trump's fault. All they know is, how do I feel? And you know that's a powerful weapon. And if they feel like Trump's presidency hasn't been good, then they might vote for Biden or vote against Trump. So I'll tell you what, man. Whoever has the last word is going to win. You can have 3 years of prosperity, but then you give people 1 month of chaos and they'll be like, we need a change. They'll forget the years of good economy, good living, because the 1 month of chaos. So the economy may rebound very, very quickly. I'm seeing a lot of reports suggesting that as companies start to reopen, unemployment is going to drop dramatically. This is good for Trump because people will start to feel better again. But we don't know for sure. And we still have now the left coming out and claiming second wave is coming. And we have the statues being torn down. I guess there's a lot of questions. The first question is, will people think that Trump is chaos? And because of it, they want Biden, who's normalcy. They want the establishment back. Maybe. Or will people say, Joe Biden can't protect us anymore? We need Trump to drop the hammer. It was Trump who said Insurrection Act. And it was the left who said no. So I have to imagine regular Americans are now looking at all this saying Trump was right. We need to stop this. Now, I don't know if the Insurrection Act is the right idea. I don't recall it being. I think it was used in LA riots. I don't know for sure. So I'm not able to recall what the political sphere looked like last time it was invoked. But something needs to happen. I don't know what we could expect Trump necessarily to do. I don't know. I did tweet before that he should do something, and he has. Police reform, he's tweeted. I don't know if that's worth anything. But ultimately, in the end, we'll see what his rhetoric becomes as we move forward. This, to me, feels like an attempted revolution. Now, here's what's scary. Bill Barr apparently announced the resignation of a Southern District of New York prosecutor. We're seeing a bunch of conflicting reports about like why this prosecutor is relevant. But the left, so this prosecutor now came out and said, no, I'm not resigning. It's a very confusing story. Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? The reason I bring this up is not to get in depth into what that means, but to point out at the very highest level of government, we have a fracture between left and right. Then if you go all the way down to the street level, we have statues being torn up. The fabric of our nation is being torn apart. The Constitution is Swiss cheese. Police are enforcing unconstitutional edicts from governors who then violate their own orders and go out and protest. You can't run your business, they can go out and march. You can't go to church, but they can chant Black Lives Matter. You can't sing, they can chant. And now they're destroying statues. Check out this photo. Sohrab Amari says, well, that's awkward. Biden and Pelosi were, quote, on the wrong side of history just 5 years ago. What with paying homage to Saint Junipero Serra, the apostle of California, when the Holy Father visited the U.S. Yep, because Pelosi is California, and there's the statue. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about, as evidenced by this tweet from Eris Rusinos. I hope I pronounced your name right. I probably didn't. Eris is a journalist I met working at Vice. I have a lot of respect for him. Conflict reporter. He tweeted this. Why Cervantes? Cervantes famously was a slave himself, captured by the Barbary pirates and enslaved in the galleys of Algiers for 5 years before being ransomed. And they vandalized and desecrated Cervantes, who was a slave. Okay, so we can talk about Ulysses S. Grant. Well, let's jump over to this one. Yeah, he was captured and enslaved for 5 years. I don't know the full details of the full history. I'm not, so I defer to Eris on this one. Aris. And I have to question. I did look it up, and my understanding is it's true, yes. This man, Cervantes, was captured by the pirates and forced into slave labor. Why desecrate a slave himself? Curious, right? There's a memorial that was paid for by former slaves to Abraham Lincoln, and they're trying to tear that down as well. And I think that should say to you, when they're going after the slaves themselves, they don't care about Black Lives Matter. They care about destroying American culture and history. It's culture revolution. In order to create the new system, they must erase our memories of the past. Why? Those who forget their past are doomed to repeat it. So in order to actually attempt more atrocities, they have to make sure we don't remember why we did certain things. In California, the Democrats, under the guise of affirmative action, have voted to repeal their civil rights legislation. No, it's not an amendment to protect affirmative action. It's literally a provision to straight up strike through and remove. The provision says the state shall not discriminate on the basis of race, sex, national origin, color, etc. That's all it does. It removes it, allowing the state to literally start segregating again. That to me is absolutely psychotic. But that's what they're doing. It's not about protecting, minorities or ending racism. It is about being overtly racist. Some people have said, clearly they want to discriminate against white people. That's why they want to reverse that bill. No, you're wrong about that too. 100%. California seeks to revoke their civil rights legislation, and it is not about discriminating against white people. It is about discriminating against everyone and every race. That's why we put that law in place in the first place. Now, the 1964 Civil Rights Act mirrors it very similarly. Theirs was an amendment that I believe was put forth in 1996. Because of that, they haven't been able to have affirmative action. I assure you, taking away this provision, California is not only on the left. There are conservative areas. There are a lot of racists in California. And you will empower them to discriminate against literally everyone. Asians particularly, and white people, but also Latinos and also black people and anybody else, Middle Eastern, Indian. They will be able to discriminate against everybody, and they will. They will say, I'm sorry, I know you worked really hard, young, impoverished Native American, but we already have too many Native Americans, so we can't hire you. That's what you will start seeing. They are desecrating the slaves themselves and the people who freed the slaves. This is all a lie. We'll see how this is dealt with, but I'm not confident that it will be. These people are insane. Maybe Americans will stand up. Maybe not. Maybe it's too late. The younger generation seems to be going insane. The older generation is sitting in lawn chairs going to Trump rally to wave their little flags. And what is Trump doing? As far as I can tell, a little bit here and there, but is he standing up and speaking out? Have the Republicans started actually condemning all of this? Haven't seen it. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at timcast.net. It is my other YouTube channel. Go to timcast.net, and I will see you all there at 4 p.m.